Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Charles Perot and Ab Van with GDI Consulting, and this is the Securities and Exchange Commission's ONE OIT webinar, and we are addressing the RFP for the ONE OIT on-ramp offering that has been released, an extension of one that was released earlier this year. So let's get down to what the content of today's presentation is going to entail, and there'll be some administrative topics that we want to talk about first, and then we'll get right into the meat of it. Okay. Hang on one second. All right. A couple of administrative notes here at the outset. This webinar is being recorded, and the link will be sent within 24 hours. So everyone who is in attendance right now, the email that you submitted will be the email to which the link for the recording will be sent out to. The chat feature you'll see on your sidebar there. If you have a question during the course of the presentation, feel free to send your chat, send it to admin. If you don't want that publicly distributed, send it to admin, and we will be addressing that in a Q&A session following our run through of the slide presentation. Some of those questions, if they are more in depth or if we are running out of time, we may have to defer those to a later write-up and then distribute that to the group as well. Also, you can download the entire presentation by clicking on the file link, and that's on the right-hand side panel of your window as well, and that's to get a copy of the associated files that we'll be displaying as we go along. There is a delay, I understand, for folks who are dialed in as opposed to the presenters, so feel free to send a note if at any point there's a lag or a delay as we're moving along, and we can make a point to pause for a second while we switch slides. That said, let's get down to the business of the OIT offering itself. First of all, what is the importance? Why is it that we're presenting this seminar? And it's basically twofold that we want to focus. The first is the response preparation for these types of scoring, self-scoring sheet augmented proposal submissions that are becoming more popular. They can be complex, and they involve several moving parts as we go. So we want to keep in mind that most organizations are unsure of what the processes are for making no-go and no-go decisions for these types of submissions, and we want to make sure that you are on top of all of your compliance criteria and that you have made all the appropriate analyses and explored all your options before you make a go-no-go decision. Also, there's complexities involved. Offerings have some conventions that should be addressed to assure the reviewers of your understanding, but also every agency and RFP has a combo that is this combination that's unique with special requests for information and specific priorities for the ranking and the reviewing of the materials and the information that you submit. So it adds a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of pieces to proposal development. Second of all, we want to present to you that GDI can help with your submission preparation, given its extensive experience in proposal preparation of this type and the preparation, the organization and the management of the process overall. GDI has written many successful scoring proposals of this type particularly. There's been a win on a previous SEC offering. There are 8 wins on the Oasis offering, 4 wins for HCATS, and 6 wins on Alliant. and further. These all involve self-scoring and a lot of the validations that are associated with presenting scores to your offering organization and then supporting that with your own documentation. Finally, GDIC has ample experience overall with the entire process. This is from capture and preparation and decision making through the development process of proposals for many different types of government agencies and different types of contract offerings. And this includes, during the preparation, it includes the input from SMEs, subject matter experts, proposal preparation, and finally to the submission process itself. So our goals today, what the content of the presentation involves is understanding the problem and understanding the solution to go along with the problem. So in understanding the problem, we want to become familiar with self-scoring systems, what the purpose of those are, and how this one in particular pertains to the requirements in the OIT offering. We also want to evaluate some of the high-level requirements, talk about basic levels of compliance itself. We want to go to discover how or gauge our chances for success. In other words, what is the basis for the scoring? How are they drawing the line in terms of who it will be a valid candidate and most likely to be selected, and how can you improve those chances? Finally, to assess the resources needed, both to collect and prepare your submission, but also to look forward to, in the event of an award, what those resources might be in order to service the contract itself. Second, we want to understand the solution to the problem. We want to talk about getting a picture of the self-scoring system from your own perspective. How are your particular experiences and how are your particular contracts going to factor into the scoring, and how to best serve what the questions and the criteria for scoring are. To prepare a black hat go, no-go analysis for your own organization, to utilize our scoring matrix to gauge yourself. GDI has its own scoring matrix that can be used as a tool prior to filling out the attachment scoring sheet that goes along with the OIT RFP submission itself, so that you can more actively balance and tweak and assess your compliance and your scoring analysis for the submission itself. Finally, to estimate the resources and the complexity of the contract so that you can see whether or not you are already capable and prepared as a sole organization, or whether you're doing this as a collaborative group effort, whether or not there is going to be some teaming on your part. So the outline of the webinar, as will be presented in a few minutes, we'll have Ab Van come on and start getting into the actual content for the offering itself. We'll start with the general information. We're going to move on from there to the functional areas, the service channels to be handled and to be covered by each offer or submitter. We're going to go through some of the minimum requirements for compliance and to be eligible. We want to talk about the self-scoring system, that the particulars for this particular offering. We want to talk about the layout or the volume structure that's going to go into a submission. We'll touch upon that, what the content of that is, and what some of the weighting of the reviewers will be. We want to talk about the scoring system, basically how to manage that, what some of the examples of that might be, and then some of the specific weights for some of the specific categories. Finally, what we believe is the winning strategy for this, the ways to maximize your scores, and also to prepare for the supporting documentation and submission information that will support those scores for you and for your team if you're collaborating with other organizations. Once we're done with this presentation, the slide deck, we will be addressing the questions that are submitted through the chat box window there. And again, we'll do what we can verbally to fit that within the hour. Anything that goes beyond that, or for those that might require a little bit more research or time to get into, we can publish those and send those back out to all the attendees. So that said, let me turn things over to Ab Van, Vice President over at GDIC. And Ab, if you're here, you can take on over now.
Hi, everyone. This is Ab Van. I head our Capture and Proposal Development Department, and I'm going to go into depth with regards to the SEC ONE OIT today. Okay, we'll go quickly over the general information about this bid and then go into the details. As you know, this is from the Securities and Exchange Commission. It was released on November 29th. It was due to be released mid this December, but apparently they're in a hurry, so they actually issued it on the 29th. It is due on January 15th, so not much time considering the holidays. The next code, 541512, Computer System Design Services, that's you need to be small under, even if you're large or whatever, under other next codes. Under this, you need to be small. It's a 5-year project, multiple award IDIQ. They're going to pick 10 awardees, but there is a catch to that. First of all, in the beginning of the year, they when they bid this, they went for 3 large businesses and 15 small businesses. Apparently, they want more small businesses, so they're asking for 10 more. So at the end, they're going to have 25 small businesses. However, they want to have at least 5 WOSBs, 5 hub zones, 5 SDVOSBs, and 5 8As. So if in the award of those 10 companies, they still don't get to those goals, they're going to award it to more. So that's one issue that should be considered. It's a $2.5 billion project and obviously set aside for small business. Now, it's good to remember some of those dates, especially the issue date is okay, but December 10th is the last day you can provide questions. They might allow more questions after that, but let's not risk it. So write down that December 10th, all questions should be sent to them by then. And January 15th is the proposal due date. And I'm going to explain why it is a very, very short suspense. Because unlike the other self-scoring systems that you didn't need to get a signature from the contracting office unless there was a change or something, here you have to get a contracting officer's signature for every contract that you're going to submit. So if the maximum is 25, if you're going to submit 25 contracts, you need to chase after 25 COs. So it is a big issue considering the holidays. So it is something that we'll touch on again because it's part of the strategy on how you're going to do it. And it's expected that the contract award is the 4th quarter of 2019. Okay, let's go into the functional areas. In other words, what they call service channels. That means that the projects that we are supposed to present, and I will explain that in more detail later, they need to cover these 7 areas. Now, due to the time constraint, we are not going to go into the details and explain what each of these will be. But overall, application development management, business solutions delivery, non-platform, IT infrastructure operations and management, information security, data management, IT governance, and technology business management are the 7 areas. Now, each of these have different scorings. We'll get to that. So it's not that, for example, service channel 1 you'll get much more points on that than, for example, service channel 7. So we have to consider that as we go along. But essentially, your contracts need to cover these and all the sub items under them that I will show you when I will show you the matrix that we have developed for this. So let's go into the minimum requirements for this. Obviously, you need to be small under the NAICS code 541512. Now, the good thing about this is that you as the prime can be both prime on a contract or sub on a contract. In other words, unlike, for example, Oasis or other self-scorings, this one does allow you to use the contracts that you have been sub under. So that's a good thing. You can get score for that. Now, you can also use subcontractors on this project. So if you bring in subcontractors, you can use their projects. The only catch to that is that if you use your subcontractors' projects, they must be prime on that. They can't be sub. So you can be sub on your projects, but your subcontractors can't be sub on their projects. Only prime projects from them. Contracts must have been performed during the past 4 years. It was 3, they changed it to 4. And must be or can be ongoing. But if they're ongoing, you need to have at least 1 year of performance. There is a exception to that. If you have a CPAR for something that is, has a performance less than a year, that's fine. And also, sometimes projects are just for 3 months, 6 months. If you can prove that, essentially it was a project for 6 months, that's good enough too. So those are the 2 exceptions. Otherwise, your projects, if they're ongoing, they need to have 1 year of performance. Now, the RFP explains that covering multiple service channels is not a minimum mandatory for prime, but is overall. This is something that is confusing to a number of companies that I've talked to. As the prime, you do not have to cover with your projects all the 7 service channels. However, as a whole, your proposal must cover it. In other words, your subs and you together must cover all 7 service channels. Because some thought that they can go only for 1 service channel. No, that's not allowed. But they have allowed the prime not to cover everything. So the prime can cover, say, only 1 service channel, and the 6 other service channels can come from the subs. In fact, they've gone as far as saying that all the 7 service channels can be covered by the subs. So this requirement is only for the prime, that it is not minimum and mandatory. But for the overall proposal, yes, we have to cover all 7 service channels. And also, contracts must be primarily IT services. You can't use a contract that was supposed to do something else and had a side job on IT. The primary purpose of the project must be IT. So these are the major requirements. There are other requirements, but these are the ones that usually are issues. Okay, let's go into the proposal volume structure. 6 volumes. Volume 1 is general, meaning all the administrative stuff. SF30 or SF33 with the amendments and all that, and a few other administrative forms and things that you need to sign or present. Volume 6, let me jump to that, price. That, like volume 1, these 2 volumes, you don't get any score on those. So essentially, volume 1 and volume 6 are for information purposes, and of course a go, no go, I mean a pass or fail. For price, you just need to be in range, above the minimum that they expect and below the maximum that they expect. That's all. So they're not going to give you any score for price. They just check to make sure that your pricing is in range. Volume 1, 2, you just have to be compliant. You just have to do what they have asked you to do for volume 1. Fill in, certain reps and things like that. But everything else relies on the other 4 volumes, volumes 2, 3, 4, and 5. Volume 2 is relevant experience. And this is the most important in terms of scoring volume. So here you have to cover all those 7 service areas, service channels. You have to cover those, and as the more you cover the sub items of each of those service channels, the more score you get. We'll get to that. Past performance is this, you provide past performance for those projects that you provide in volume 2. But unlike other self-scoring systems that past performance got a score, in terms of, if you are excellent past performance or very good or satisfactory, it doesn't matter here. As long as the contract has a satisfactory or above past performance, you get the point. So it's either you get it or you don't get it. You get it if it's above, if it's satisfactory or above, or you don't get the score if it's below it. So that makes it simple. Certifications, okay, this is like CMMI, ISO, and similar. Good thing about it, again, unlike other self-scoring systems like Oasis or Alliant, which gave certification only to the prime, here, if you have a subcontractor which has a, say, CMMI 3, and you don't have it, then you can get the score for it. So certifications does cover subcontractors, and you can use your subcontractor certifications to get the score. Volume 5, risk assessment. This is a few things like, for example, how many projects you've done specifically for SEC, for Securities and Exchange. You can provide up to 3, and you get score for that. You can get score for SEC projects from your subs, a little bit less if it's from prime, but you can get score for it. And then whether you've done multiple award projects or not. So these are a few things, they call it risk assessment, that we'll go into a little bit further on. And I covered price. So 2, 3, 4, 5 are the ones, the volumes that you will get scored for. And volume 2 has the highest, and we'll see how that works. Okay, let's first explain what a self-scoring system is, just for those of you who don't know it. I'll go very quickly over it. So if you're not familiar with it, I can explain. The self-scoring system is essentially a new system that started with GSA, if I'm not mistaken, and now other agencies are using. It's essentially putting the burden of evaluation on us, the contractors, instead of the government doing it. And essentially it's this: you fill out a self-scoring spreadsheet based on the scores that the government has set for each different item, and you self-score yourself. So that's the main document, the self-scoring spreadsheet, which you self-score yourself. Excuse me. And then you substantiate your claims. How do you substantiate it? You provide documentation to prove it. Now, this documentation could be in different ways. In SEC, the documentation is Form Attachment 16 and 17. Attachment 16 is something that you fill out, and then you get the CO to sign it. So that's the main documentation that you need to submit. In other self-scoring systems, sometimes they need you to submit the SF, 33 or the statement of work, FPDS pull downs, a number of different documents. But here it's much simpler. You have to fill out Form 16 and then get it signed. That's the thing. You have to get it signed by the CO. But you have to substantiate what you have asked in terms of the self-scoring system, what you've said you deserve. Now, what does the government do? They first usually check for compliance and remove all non-compliant proposals. That is usually the first thing they do because they get a lot of proposals, and it just saves time from them because they can put away all the proposals that are non-compliant. Now, let me give you an idea about this because this is a major issue with all the companies. I have numbers. I don't have numbers for SEC previous one, but I do have numbers for HCATS, which is a GSA self-scoring system. Essentially the same system, same stuff. Last time, 75% of the small businesses that submitted projects, submitted proposals, were disqualified for being non-compliant. 75%. And you would think that large businesses would do better. Well, they do, but not much. 50% of large businesses that submitted proposals were found non-compliant. So compliance is a major issue on this, and the government is going to use that just to, lessen their burden. So the first thing they do is just check for non-compliant proposals and put them away. Then they will rank the proposals based on the score that we have as our proposal in our proposal set in the self-scoring spreadsheet. So they rank the proposals and they start checking them, checking the substantiation of each of them. They start from the highest score, check its substantiation. If it's okay, they go to next. When they're done with the first 10, that's it. They're not going to look at the rest. So self-scoring spreadsheet is very important in terms of what score you get, because they're not even going to look at the others that have lesser scores. So it is very important to actually maximize your point, and we're going to cover that a little bit later on. Okay, let's go to the scoring system of SEC ONE OIT. As I mentioned, essentially it's based on the 7 service channels, and the requirements is you have to provide those contracts 4 years or be ongoing, 4 years past or be ongoing. Now, if you look at here, you'll see that the division of the score is speaks for itself. Experience, meaning that those service channels, 11,275. Past performance, 4,200. Certifications, 1,100. Risk management, 5,000. So you'll see that experience has a little bit less than 3 times past performance and twice risk management, and with certifications 10 times. So that speaks for itself where you need to concentrate, although experience shows that you need to concentrate on everything. But I mean, you need to put your efforts on getting that experience up as much as you can. Okay, now what can go wrong with our proposal? Let's review that a little bit. Obviously, compliance and compliance and compliance. I told you with regards to those numbers, 75% get disqualified. So that is understood and everybody is aware of it. Now, that compliance has many different meanings for people. Compliance does not mean that you name the documents correctly. It covers that. I mean, if you don't name the documents correctly, that's one of the issues that makes you non-compliant. But that's the format. most of the non-compliant problems go down deep into selection of the contracts, and the contracts not having the minimum requirements like the 4 years, or other issues, and I'll get to those a little bit later as well, here as well. But so compliance has a overall meaning, although we need to be very careful with regards to how we work with it. It covers formatting and it covers content, and we'll look into that later. Now, for this one, because you have to get signatures for all the contracts, this is a major issue. We are going to run into the holidays, and you're going to be chasing COs for, say, 25 contracts or even 10 contracts. That's not an easy issue. So it is imperative that you start very early and start chasing those COs to get those signatures. And strangely enough, if you don't have CPARs and you want to fill in PPQs, which the government needs to sign, they're saying that the PPQs must be also signed by the COs. Now, they've said that if you can't find the CO, okay, the core, the contracting officer representative, or the program manager can sign, but they must notify the COs. So both for experience and for past performance, lots of administrative jobs of chasing around people. So you need to start very early on that. And if you leave that out to the last weeks and you don't get a signature for one of those contracts, you can't use that contract, and that's it. You lose all the points that you can get from that contract. Now, one other thing that can go wrong many times is not maximizing your score. What does that mean? You actually deserve a score, but you don't get it. I mean, you don't go for it. That is an issue that is very delicate. You need to understand how it works. And then, obviously, we can help you, but even if you're doing it yourself, you need to be aware that that is one of the factors, at least from our experience, that many companies miss. Sometimes they ask for score for something that they don't deserve, but they also miss a number of items that they can really get a score for, and they think they can't substantiate it, but in reality they can substantiate it. So that brings us to the next one, which is not substantiating your score properly. The previous one, not maximizing your score, means that, for example, you think you don't have the substantiation, so you don't go for it. But sometimes you think you know that you have that score and you try to substantiate it. In other words, provide the proper documentation, but there's a mistake in your documentation. On this one, on the SEC, you have to fill out Form 16, Attachment 16. If you don't fill it up properly for each contract, if you don't fill it up properly, even though the CO might sign it, you're not going to get the scores. So filling up those forms and substantiating what you've claimed for is very important, and you have to work on that. And then lastly, and perhaps the most important, is not taking advantage of partnering. I'm going to cover that later, but just to give you an idea, of the 21,500 points, of that, only 1,500 is based on the prime. In other words, if you don't get high scores, it doesn't mean that you didn't have the past performance. It means that you didn't work hard enough to get partners, because you can get nearly 20,000 points from your partners. So think of that. Out of the 21,500, you can get 20,000 points from your partners, from your subcontractors. So essentially, this boils down to getting more and more subcontractors, and I will cover this a little bit further as we go on. Okay, here, let's discuss the win strategy of how we should go. First of all, I want to cover the issue of go, no go. Unfortunately, a go, no go cannot be done at the beginning of this project. Of course, you can decide which contracts do not cover for example, the 4-year period and put them aside. That's fine. But the issue is that since 20,000 come from your subs, you can always go and find subs. So unless you're sure that there's no way that you can get subs, a go, no go, negative go, no go is not a correct thing to do at the beginning. You need to start working on the projects that you have, as well as the projects that your subs bring in, and then see what the holes are, and then decide if you can fill in those holes, maximize your points or not. So essentially, this is the thing about the go, no go. You need to do a go, no go at the beginning, obviously, but a number of times during the process, to make sure that you are on the right track, getting the right people. Or you might reach a point saying that I just can't get more subs and I am 5,000 short of the expected score, so that's it, I quit. But you can't do that from the beginning, obviously. And that's how it goes on this one. Now, second point I wanted to make is the issue of experience instead of past performance. In almost, or I should say, most other self-scoring systems that we've worked, for example, we did 15 Oasis Pool 1 just a month ago. The most important factor, the winning factor, was past performance. So you should go and find the best project as far as past performance is concerned, even if the value was just 150,000, or even if the functional areas that it covered were very few, because the highest score you could get came from past performance. But here on SEC, on SEC or ONE OIT, the highest number comes from experience. So you should concentrate on that and try to make sure. And as I mentioned, past performance is just yes, no. If it's a yes, you get 600 points on that service channel. If it's a no, you just don't get the 600. And that yes comes from past performance that is good or above. Satisfactory or above. So you should concentrate on experience. Contracts that have a widespread coverage of different areas that are requested in the RFP under those 7 service channels. Now, we are limited a little bit on that, so that's another thing that in the win strategy we should consider. For those 7 service channels, SC means service channel, there are a limited number of contracts you can provide. For example, for service channel 1, you can provide 6 contracts. For service channel 2, you can provide 3 and onwards until service channel 7, which you can provide 2. So picking which of those contracts is then another issue. How do you maximize your score? For example, in service channel 3, which you can provide 2 contracts only, and then you have 4 contracts on your table. Which one should I give? How do you maximize your score? Or your subcontractor, you want to see whether you should use your subcontractor's contract or yours. How do you maximize your score? So that is an issue that I will show you in a few more slides. We have created a scoring matrix that resolves that. So that is something that we can help on. And last but not least is partnering. I have mentioned on that a number of times. As I said, 20,000 points comes from your partners, in other words, subcontractors. So I would say that partnering is the most important factor in your win strategy. You should concentrate on that more than anything else. And if you ask me whether it should be a JV or a prime sub, I would suggest a prime sub. Why? You can bring in 10 subcontractors, but creating a JV with 10 companies, it's a huge undertaking. But here, even if a company gives you 100 points, you can bring them in, make them your sub, and get that 100 points. Of course, I understand that there's a lot of logistics involved, but I think it's much simpler than going for a JV. And I should mention, with regards to, it might be a question, the size standard of your subs. Essentially on everything except risk management, volume 4, I think. Essentially everything, you can have both large and small subs. So you can actually bring in large subs. Yes, you can do that. That's, again, unlike Oasis. At least so far, the RFP has allowed it, unless they come back in response to a question and negate it. So far, we can bring in large subs and small subs. Okay, so I know that you want to understand the requirements and win. You want to be able to gauge your chances of winning, and you want to be able to make sure that you're compliant. How can we help you on that? What we have devised is our own self-scoring matrix. And I'm going to show that. I'll share my screen with you, show you how our self-scoring matrix works. We create this for every self-scoring project, and it's created specifically based on that. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, this is the self-scoring worksheet that the government has provided. You can see that they have put a relevant experience, service channel 1, and then they tell you which of these, under each service channel, what are the items, what score they get.
Hang on one second, Eb. We might have a delay in getting the chart up there. I'm just seeing the slide deck disappeared, but we didn't get your new upload yet.
Okay.
There it is. Okay, now it's visible.
You get it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I was saying that this is what I'm showing you right now is what the government calls the self-scoring worksheet. You have to fill this up and send to the government. And you can see, for example, for service channel 1, there are different items in it, categories, items, and then the score you get. So, for example, if you can cover information assurance, you tick it, and there you get 100 points. And you go on like this. But question is this. Which contract, and you have 5 contracts, you don't know which of those you should use. And then your subs have different contracts. So the problem here is that this spreadsheet does not show you which contracts you can use, which contracts give you a higher score. what are you missing, how you can go after subs. So there are different issues like that, and I want to show you what ours does. So I'm going to click on the self-scoring system that we have. This is the self-scoring system that we have. I'm showing you in a small size, so I can actually expand it. I'm going to expand all of this. These are all been tied up together. When I expand it, you'll see that there are different, all these requirements are put into this spreadsheet. Now, each of these rows are one contract. So we put in one contract, and then we start to review the information. And let me make it larger so you can see it. Okay, so for example, this is a contract with DIA, Defense Information Agency, the contract number, and then the period of performance. And then it tells us what score we get on each of the service levels. Service level 1, which has the maximum score of 2,000, and you can provide 6 contracts for. Here, this contract gives us 1,400. And then you can see under each of those service levels what level you get for that contract. So, and then the total score that you're going to get for this contract by itself. These green and red lines, colors also tell us if this contract can be used at all. For example, this one, this Air Force contract, since it started on 1st of June 2018 and ongoing for till June of 2019, this doesn't have a 1-year performance, so we can't use it. So this way we know that this contract can't be used. Same for here. This contract started in 2012, finished in 2014. So it's not 4 years past. So we can't use it. But each of these numbers that you can see here, they are created by a very complex formula. I'll click on the formula so you can see that this is the formula that calculates it. Now, how it works is like this. For any, for example, this is service level 1 and all the requirements, and these are the numbers that you get, the score. If you put a 1 under each of them, it means that you have this. So you just go through this, you review it. In other words, we do it. We go through the statement of work for that project, review it based on all these requirements. And when we see that it covers something, for example, here, we just put a 1. As soon as we put a 1, this score changes here. So at the end, and the score here changes too, because it was for service channel 1. So at the end, we have a clear picture of what each contract will give us under each of the service channels, as well as overall. Now, and this is done throughout all the service channels. Unfortunately, this is a very large spreadsheet, so it can't be shown properly. But this covers all the service channels as well as all the others, past performance, certifications, and everything. And also, one question might pop up. Now, okay, I see that, for example, this contract is good, I'm good, but I need more contracts, for example, in service channel 5 or service channel 4. You see, most of my contracts are weak here. So this tells you that if you're going to go after a sub, where you should concentrate. You should go for a sub that is stronger in these 2 service areas. Even lower than that, okay, I want to maximize, for example, my score on service channel 1, but those, and go after a sub that fills in the holes that I have. How do I do that? Okay, so here you go down here, and you see when it says OK, it means that you already have that score. You just scroll, and here it is. See, you need it. So this is the area. This is the area that you have to go and find a sub for. If you scroll along this, you'll get to more of these needs. So this tells you, this spreadsheet tells you what you're missing, which areas you're missing, and how you should go after them with your partners. So this is what we prepare for each client that we work with. We go through their statements of work and fill up this for the entire projects that they and their partners bring. I should also mention that there is a row called General Company. That means those, for example, items at the end, like, for example, the volume, last volume, SEC experience, because this comes to the company as a whole, or service channels if the prime can cover 3 to 4 service channels, or if the prime has covered 5 to 7 service channels, you get a score for it. Or if you've done multiple award IDIQs, you get a score for it. These are not based on one specific contract. So these are added up together, and we have or the certifications that we mentioned, and they go into a row called General Company Score. And at the end, when you add these up, you'll find out what your final score will be. So this shows the way that our self-scoring system works. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Now, having said that, we provide 2 systems to our clients, full proposal development and reviewing and auditing. In our full proposal development, we do a go, no-go initially, and then we do 2 or 3 as we go on. Since I mentioned it needs to be done as you go on and as you get more subs and partners on the way. We do scoring assessment and optimization. In other words, we work to see how we can actually optimize your score, where the weaknesses are, and we provide you with suggestions as to what to do. Forms preparations, we fill out all the forms and everything for you. So you don't do any form preparation unless it's something that you want to do. For example, sometimes companies want to do the pricing themselves. Otherwise, we do everything for you. And then we do the full proposal assembly, all the substantiation, all the work and preparations. The only thing, obviously, we can't do is chasing those COs because they're in contact with you. But we'll prepare the forms and everything, give them to you so that you can send them to the COs. And of course, and the most important is full and multiple compliancy checks. We do those at least 3 times. And usually we don't put a team of one-man show. It's not like that because you might be prone to mistakes. So usually we have a team of 3, 2 or 3 people working on the same project, just to have multiple sets of eyes checking each other to make sure that there's no compliancy problems. Some companies do want to do the project themselves, which usually we've had a very bad experience, to be honest. They've made many mistakes, but if that is the case, we can also help them. We do compliancy checks for them, and we also do score optimization. So once they prepare their proposal, they send it over to us. We check it for compliancy and see if they can actually increase their score. So that's another service that we provide. That essentially brings our presentation as far as going over the details of the SEC or ONE OIT to conclusion. You can contact Charles, or you can contact me by email or phone, and we're ready to answer any questions that we are not able to answer right now. And as Charles said, we will compile all the questions and responses and send them over if we are not able to cover everything today. So now we can start the Q&A if you want. Charles?
Okay, sounds good. I've been collecting some of the questions that attendees have been sending in, so I'll read off a few of them. We're kind of pressed for time, but I'll let you know when we reach the end of the hour, so we can see if we have any availability for folks to stick around a little longer. But also, as we said earlier, we can send out written responses to some of these. So let's jump right into a few of the ones that I have out here. A couple of the ones have to do with just a discussion of eligibility of contracts for yourself and for subs. The first one, Ab, is as a prime, do we need to have a prime contract in 541, 512, or can we use prime contracts that we have in 541, 511 as well?
Okay. There is no requirement that the actual NACS code for the specific contract that you're going to provide be in 541, 512. You can provide any other contract, but remember that they said that it must be a major IT service. I mean, the main part of it must be IT services. But as you know, contracting officers, they put in NACS, haphazardly. So they are not, in terms of the requirements of the RFP, they're not asking. The only thing with regards to 541, 512 is that you as the prime must be small under that NACS code. That's all.
Okay. That actually answers question number 2. We had someone ask, can we bring in a large business as a sub if they are not a small business listed under 541, 512?
Yes.
So that's allowable, it sounds.
Right.
Okay. And also they are asking if you have signed past performance documents from a COR from the initial submission, are you able to submit those, or do we need to have them signed again? In other words, is it mandatory to get the CO or COR signed PPQ works if you've gotten them once for a prior submission?
Okay, there's nothing in the RFP saying either way. Per experience, I know that, for example, this was a similar question put up for Oasis Pool 1, and the government said, no, you have to get that signed again. But that was GSA. We don't know how SEC is going to do it. So I would suggest that you actually put that as a question and see how they respond.
One of the ones to be submitted by the 10th. Okay. Beyond that, we have there is asking, does GDI review the technical write-ups that are prepared for clients for each past performance to make sure it aligns with the task areas that they are addressing, that they're writing and attempting to get scoring for?
Of course, that's our responsibility. As I said, we are responsible for all the forms, including the PPQs and including attachment 16, which is the form that you need to fill out for getting the score. So we will work hand in hand with you to make sure that those forms are written properly, are compliant, and we get them signed as soon as possible.
Okay. There was a question about the numbering. Hang on. It says, please explain where you get the numbers for the use of multiple contracts. Slide.
Multiple contract slide. Which slide is that?
That is, see if I can pull this up quickly here.
Well, let's go over that
Okay.
at the end if we have time.
All right.
Sorry if to the customer I did not understand.
No problem. Let's see if we approach. There was a question about the risk assessment scoring, the totals on there. A person asked if the maximum score should be 5,500 rather than 5,000. I'm assuming that's a misprint. 6,000 is what's listed on the sheet there. And I believe that 6,000 is the maximum score that you can get, given that
there was a change. There was a change. It is 5,000 now.
Okay.
And let me explain how it works. For multiple awards, you get 1,000. That's understood. Either you have it or you don't. For service channels, either you have 3 to 4 service channels as prime, you get 500, or you have 5 to 7, you get 1,000. Assuming that you have 5 to 7, that's 1,000. So you have 2,000 there. Now the main part is the SEC experience. The SEC experience, if all the 3 projects, because they accept 3 projects maximum, if all the 3 projects come from this prime, you get 3,000 points. So 3,000 plus 2,000 is 5,000. That's the maximum. Now for those 3 projects, if the experience comes from your sub, you'll get less score, and they've explained it how it works. So you get less score if it comes from the sub than if it's yours. You can still get score, but less. So the maximum you get for that is 3,000 plus the other 2,000 is maximum 5,000.
Got it. All right. And it looks like we are at the hard stop. We can stick around for a few more minutes if there's opportunity to do so. I can see that some folks are having to log off already, but we can try to at least address the PowerPoint slide question there, where we were looking for the multiple award slide, or excuse me, it says explain the use of multiple contracts slide. So on this slide, your use of multiple contracts is on your win strategy slide, which is number 15. And I assume that the question has to do with basically in each of those service channels, the number of references that they're looking for. I think those are
right. Now I understand. Yes. Okay. You see, you can use multiple contracts for each of those service channels. If you look at, for example, it says 6 contracts. You can use 6 contracts for service channel 1. So, for example, the first contract might give you 300 points, and then the second one another few points. So you can add all of these 6, and then you get the maximum. So for each of those, but you can't say have 7 or 8. So you have to cover all of the points, all of the items with those 6 contracts. The same stands for the other service levels. Obviously, for those, they're less. For example, for service level 2, you're allowed only 3 contracts. Now, the problem is this. You might have, for example, let's take the case of service channel 2. You might have 3 contracts yourself, but your subs might also have 2 or 3 contracts that cover service channel 2. Which one should you use? Which combination of the 3 should you use? And that's where that matrix comes into help. It tells you which combination will give you the highest score. That's what I meant.
Understood.
We have, perhaps we can go for another 10 minutes if there are more questions.
Sure. We still have a few, and There's a question. It says, do you know what the point threshold was for small businesses for the original small business awardees? I'm assuming this is referring. Is this the earlier contract? We might need to get more clarification on that one.
If that is the case, we think it was around 20, but there have been some changes here. They have removed some items. They've changed things. So right now, overall is 21,500. I think if you're above 19 or better 20, you're on the safe side. And that is because it's very high, and that is because of the issue of partnering. Because with partners, you can get your score way up there.
Okay. Here's one that's just kind of a logistics question. How do you approach obtaining a reference on a contract that ended with an agency and everyone that you supported has moved on? In essence, I assume this means that your CO or COR is no longer accessible there. And I'm assuming that you would have to go upstairs on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't get a signature on it, or they don't think they have a good chance on getting a signature on it, then better to let go of that. Because at the end, and they have said it very specifically, if you don't get a signature on it, on that form, they're not going to review it. So either you have to get a signature from the CO or the replacement CO, which usually don't like to sign something that they don't know anything about, unless you can find those guys who've moved on, ask them to contact the CO, the new CO, the replacement CO, and discuss it with them. But at the end, if you can't do that, you better not, base your scoring on that. Over.
Got it. This is related. It should probably be the same. If using one of your subcontracts' past performance as a reference, will they also need to have a CO sign off on their past performance?
Yes. And note that when you use a past performance, you also when you use it as a relevant experience from your sub, then the past performance must be from that same contract too. In other words, you can't put in, say, 10 contracts for experience and 10 different contracts for past performance. You have to provide the same contracts for past performance. So if the contract is 4 years or ongoing, that's fine. Then that the same condition applies to past performance, because you have to use the same contract. So what I mean is that past performance is not different. The contracts that you use for past performance are not different from those that you use for experience.
Okay. The remainder of the questions are somewhat subjective to individual companies, so we will need to probably address those to the requesters. But that's pretty much the gist of it, except for a question about the content of Volume 1 itself. So we'll probably defer that since we're talking about the content of the RFP and getting into sort of the nuts and bolts. We'll probably defer that to the write-up after we're done here.
Okay.
All right. So I believe that brings us to the end of our questions that we can address in the time frame here, and kind of within the scope of the presentation. We appreciate everybody's time and attention, and hopefully this has been enlightening. If you are questioning what the next steps are, if you are further interested in the services that GDI provides. All of the above can be addressed by contacting Maron Freedy at GDIC, and let me publish this to everyone. His email address. I'll send it out here, but it will also be out on the follow-up documentation, both the presentation itself and also in our follow-up Q&A. So thanks again, everyone, for joining.
Okay, I put it up. So
okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a great day.